Shalom, Boker Tov, Rabbi Eric Solomon. It is Thursday, May 28th. We're on the 49th day, the counting of the Omer. We are approaching, in the Jewish community, the holiday of Shavuot. Literally means weeks. And we've been counting every single day from Passover to the holiday of Shavuot, which we honor. The rabbis teach us as receiving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. We're starting to celebrate that tonight, next couple of days. And before I tell you my last little morning post here, I want to say that I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I can't tell you how privileged I felt to be able to do this, but I look back at I've been doing this since right after Purim. I started the first post was somewhere in latter March, like March 20th or something like that. And I look at my watch, it's like been like 2 months. So the exception of like the holidays of Shabbat or on Passover days, done posts for basically a little over 2 months. And the idea from the beginning was when this whole thing came down and we realized we had to stay at home. I realized that I and also my colleague here, Rabbi Jenny, we decided we want to do something to offer to our community and in the broadest sense to see how the Torah guides us and gives us meaning in this challenging time. And we thought, let's just give out what we can. Let me give out what I can. And I pray it has given you some meaning and some uplift, perhaps some inspiration or validation. And it confirms for me that, for me, the Torah, prayer, acts of kindness, the core practices of Judaism, but really the Torah in this sense, has so much in it. And just the story, the meaning, the practice, the holidays, they can give us a lot of inspiration, regardless of whether you're Jewish or not. Their opportunity to learn and to grow, just like other faith practices. But I'm glad we can be on this journey together. So I will plan, God willing, on posting even after the holiday of Shavuot, which starts tonight, but just not every day. I need a little bit of a break myself. It's been an intense journey. Tough. So what I want to share, though, here is that the Torah portion we start next week is Parshat Naso. And we're going to the holiday of Shavuot. And Naso, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, has the priestly blessing in. The priestly blessing is considered the most ancient part of the Torah. Scholars would tell us it is, a threefold blessing that Aaron would bless us with. May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you, be gracious to you. May God look upon you and grant you peace. And that blessing has been passed on in Jewish tradition. I don't want to get too much into the weeds here because I want to get to the story. But basically, there's a tradition of offering that blessing at very key moments in Jewish ritual life. For example, when lighting Shabbat candles or holiday candles, and particularly Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the most intense, it's customary for parents, if they're able to do so, if they're living, to go to their children and to bless their children with that blessing. But basically around lighting candles or around the Shabbat table, or on Yom Kippur and lighting candles as well. And it's a very powerful blessing to go to your children and offer that blessing. Actually accustomed to place your hands on their head, maybe whisper in their ear or to chant it. And there are other times this blessing is offered. Like in our congregation, it's offered for every bar and bat mitzvah child who comes for the bima after they give the Davar Torah and do all the different aspects of showing leadership and adulthood. Typically, the rabbi in our congregation gives them the priestly blessing in Hebrew and in English. So it's a very powerful blessing to be offered. It's offered also at weddings, customarily, sometimes from spouse to spouse or parent to child. It really is like the blessing par excellence in our tradition. And of course, it's also rooted back in the fact that the Kohanim, the class of Jews called the Kohanim, this group that back in temple times was in charge of sacrifices and all that aspect. But then as it's passed on, one of the things they would do, and it's something that, Spock got it as a Jew. Leonard Nimoy was Jewish, and he was part of the Kohanim class. This is a special way of offering that blessing on special holidays here in America. In Israel, even happens on Shabbat, but in America, actually the priest, the Kohanim class comes up, actually blesses the congregation. That has its own power. So this idea of this priestly blessing has many different aspects. It comes in multiple different ways up in our tradition, but it's really profound and powerful. So I want to tell you a story about my relationship with the priestly blessing. So some of you know my father, thank God, still living and well, was the lay cantor of our congregation growing up. They called it a soloist. The Hebrew would be a shaliach tzibor. That's like the term. So my father grew up with a kind of traditional Jewish education, even though he was a Hebrew school dropout. My dad's listening here. When my parents moved to Columbia, Maryland, and they formed a new congregation called Temple Isaiah. At that time, they were like the 35th couple to join. And the rabbi came down, was a rabbinical student at first, and the person didn't have a great voice and needed help leading the prayers. And they said, does someone have it? And my mom volunteered my dad to lead the prayers because he knew them by heart. He liked to sing. Father has a beautiful voice. And what ended up just being like a volunteer thing on a Friday night, Kabbalat Shabbat, ended up being like a 30-year run as my dad being the cantor of the congregation. My dad's not ordained or invested as a cantor per se, but he knew and learned, and he was tutored by a cantor in Baltimore, and he had tapes, and he grew up with things, so he was able to lead. My dad had, and was very influential, obviously, on me and my sister and our journey. Okay, but that's to the side. One of the things my dad liked to do, so what our custom at my house on Friday night was the day's done, whatever, it was expected we would have Shabbat dinner together, and then we would go to synagogue. And my dad would leave a little earlier to go lead prayer services, and then me and my sister and my mom would go later. So before that, during the meal, we do what's just customary. I mean, for thousands of years or hundreds of years, we would light Shabbat candles, 2 candles with beautiful candlesticks that are passed on generations. We make Kiddush, and these are all typically done by my father. My father had a beautiful voice, and my mom, not such a great voice. And we would listen to my dad say the blessing over the wine, Kiddush, and then we'd have challah. I never Shabbat dinner. So one of the things, though, as far as I remember, my dad did this. It may have been like when I was really, really a baby, they didn't do it. I don't know. But as long as I remember, when I was a toddler and my sister was young, after we lit the candles, my dad would offer us the priestly blessing, which is, again, traditional, customary. And he would ring my sister and I, like we would light the shot candles at this particular part of our kitchen. And my dad would kind of bring us together. We'd all be around it and we'd close together. He'd bring us together and he'd take his hands and put them on our heads, me and my sister. And he kind of would close his eyes in a very cantorial way, with great kavanah and intention. My dad would, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, any particular melody that he had learned. And when I was young, it was somewhat solemn. My dad took it very seriously. It felt like a sense of the power of generations, the power of the Torah. I didn't even know really what it was. Something that just knew it was to be dutiful and be appropriate. Just be quiet, let your dad do this. Something's important's happening. And it was it was just standard. And in fact, over the years, we have kids come sleep over. Sometimes on Friday night, we'd have Shabbat dinner. Sometimes our friends would get that blessing as well. My dad would bless them too. Many of them not Jewish. It was beautiful. And he put his hands onto kids' heads. Okay. So you can imagine though, as we got older, and particularly me, I think maybe more my sister, I'm a teenager. Okay, I'm 15, right? I'm still having Shabbat dinner. I want to go out with my friend or whatever. My dad's like, come here, priestly blessing. So at this point, the eye rolling began, or the whatever. So, first child, respectful, more or less. I would do it, and so my sister, we'd be looking at her and sometimes we'd be chuckling or maybe making a joke under our breath that my dad, we hope, didn't see, or my mom. But we dealt with it. We did it, but in some ways we tolerated it, okay? And whatever, move on, teenagers, we're like anybody else. Fine. Go to college. Even when I came back from college, for Thanksgiving or whatever, Rosh Hashanah, Dad would offer the blessing. Would they do it every single time? I don't remember, but definitely did do it. It would happen. And at that point, I had come back from my teenage years and returned back to a more of a sense of just dutiful and some combination of whatever and just be respectful. I no longer had to push and individuate in the same way. I'm sure you understand. Tough. So fast forward. I'm 26. Rabbi Jenny's 23. We are getting married. And in the wedding, there is a tradition. There's so much traditions in a Jewish wedding. But one of the traditions is to the bride and groom, the spouses are separate from each other. They come together for what's called the bedekin. Bedekin is a time where the veil, if a bride is wearing one, is to be placed over the face and customarily done by the groom. So at that time when we come together, there's also, multiple traditions at that point, but one of them is to offer the priestly blessing. And one tradition is that the groom offers it to the bride. But another tradition, and these are all like aspects of it, is that this is a time where parents give like a final kind of blessing to their children. And you can understand the power of this moment. This is going to be the last moment before you go to the wedding canopy, the chuppah. This is the last moment where these children are still really, as a spiritual, social class, they are still the child in the sense of that's their main identity. Soon, in about 15 minutes, they're going to become a spouse. That's going to be the transition. This is the very rich, powerful moment where they're, and so that last moment, this is where the priestly blessing comes in. It's like a transitional ritual. What me and Jenny said is like, you know what, let's have our parents, before we go to the chuppah, we're going to have our parents bless us. So we're going to come together. I'm going to veil Jenny. We're going to put the ketubah, all that stuff. But right before we leave, we're going to have our parents come to us. And we had all our friends and family around us singing. And it was like maybe, I don't know, a couple hundred people. And we'll be surrounded in a circle. And we will have our parents bless us. So, you know, I don't know. I didn't think a lot about it. So I just thought it was a cool idea. So we're there, 100 people there. And I'll never forget, you know, my father and my mother come, and we kind of get in a little triangle, you know, amidst this huge cacophony of friends and love and support. It was like so surreal. You know, I'm only 26 years old. I don't know babkis of babkis, anything of anything. And my father looks to me like, am I going to put my hands on your head like you were when you were a child? And I was like, yeah, you are. So he puts his hand on my head, you know, and he starts to chant out, Yivarechecha Adonai. And I just burst into tears. Because in this moment, you know, it was like I was remembering all the Friday nights that my father blessed me with this prayer. And all the Friday nights that my mom, you know, was nearby lovingly. And all this time that I was the child and that what I'd been through and our lives together and the journey. And also realizing this was going to be the last time that my father was going to bless me. You know, I don't think there's a law that says parents can't bless their children with the priestly blessing after they get married. I mean, I guess it's possible. And perhaps in some families that is tradition. But it was understood. We didn't even have to say it. Like, my dad knew this was going to be the last time because I was no longer, the number one identity was no longer going to be that I'm his son. My number one identity was going to be I'm Jenny's husband. And it was, there's a huge loss there. I mean, like any life cycle moment, there's something lost. At the same time, there's something enormously gained. I mean, my parents were happy for me. You know, I guess as much as Jewish parents can be losers. I was kidding. Kind of. You know, it's joy, but it's mixed with sadness. Like that's life cycle. Every life cycle has life and death in it. Every single one. Something's dying, something's being born. And I felt this feeling that this is that moment. And now I'm going to please God someday. I remember the first time when my daughter was born, and that first Shabbat when Jenny and I blessed her with the priestly blessing, she was a little baby. And I didn't just cry because Meirav was my baby, and thank God, but I cried because I realized this is the generations turning on, and now not only am I a husband, but now I've been blessed to be a father. And now it's my job to pass this on. So the truth is, any ritual, you know, can have this kind of power. I don't think it's specific to Birkat HaKohanim, to the priestly blessing, right? There are a lot of things that have ritual power, that if you do them for a long time. But I think there's something particular about this blessing. You know, it talks about God's face shining upon you, granting you peace. It's some of the fundamental things that any parent wants for their kid, you know? Just want them to be at peace. Just want them to be happy. Even though happiness is elusive, I just want them to have shalom in their heart. So I say this to you also because this has been a ritual for us every day for 2 months, and really is 49 days towards the holiday Shavuot. My original intention was for you, and also was for me. You know, this is the ending of that. It has to come to an end. I need a little break. It's been a lot to offer, but it's also been a privilege to offer. And so it's coming to an end. I don't think it's as hopefully no tears are being provoked in the same way as this priestly blessing story of my father and my wedding. But I want to say that it's coming to an end and there's a loss there, but hopefully also be something gained through this experience. And also we'll come forward after Shavuot too. You know, I hope to continue offering something just more periodically from time to time. Maybe when I have a little more time to think about them more deeply, maybe practice them a little bit more, and hopefully reflective of also opportunities as things continue. But I want to bless you as well. You know, that all of you in this challenging time as we enter the holiday Shavuot, those are practicing, but those that continue in this journey as this pandemic continues. You know, may God bless and keep all of you. May God's face shine upon all of you and be gracious to you. May God look upon all of you and grant you peace. So, Boker Tov, a sweet, safe, healthy day. And I'll see you on the other side of Sinai. Again, it's not goodbye, just lehitrot until we meet again.